Mr. DJ.
Hey, check this out. We got a great show coming your way.
From the ECSI Sports Studios, it's the Midday Market Report with Jeff Dawson.
Good afternoon, sports fans from all around the globe. I am your host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and this is your Midday Market Report for Friday, April 28, 2023. The last Friday in April. Monday will be May 1st. Holy cow. Next Saturday, the Kentucky Derby. Going to have to get Mr. Smooth on next week. Who is his pick for the Derby, but it's Friday, 2:15, almost 2:30 today. We got college baseball to talk about, and we are blessed and honored to have one of the best experts in the game, the one and only Mr. Matt Grissom.
Hello.
Good afternoon, Matt. How are you?
I can't complain. Boston College just took a 2-1 lead over Clemson. That was one of the first plays I gave out. And the rest of them, you could still hop on if you want. We've got to bounce back after an atrocious week last weekend, but what's done is done. We move on.
Yes, as we were talking about backstage for about 20, 25 minutes, people don't understand the marathon approach. They don't understand the day-to-day grind. They don't understand the hours of work that it takes, as you said very nicely, to place one bet. Okay, so when you're looking at a 40-card slate and you got hours invested, you come up with 5, 6, 7, and then you figure out what is my best bet or best bets. You put your stamp on it, you name your face, at Grissom Tweets, at CBS Insiders, everything's right there on paper. You win or you lose. But for the trolls out here, it's just a game of when you're losing, let's pounce.
Yep. Yeah, and it's unfortunate, but even the best sports bettors, they're going to lose. And at the end of the day, you have to look at yourself and say, why did I place the bet? And would you do it again knowing the result? And that's kind of a dumb question because you don't want to lose money. But at the end of the day, value is value. And when you see it, you've got to jump on it because the minute you don't, that's the one that you're going to win. So you just have to keep going. And like you said, it is a marathon, not a sprint. And unfortunately, like I can afford to lose and have bad days. And I hate that when people follow, they follow one little glimpse of it. If you give me 10 baseball picks over the span of 2 weeks and you go 7-3, but I only bet 5 of them and I go 2-3 on the ones that you lost, it's not your fault. So if you followed me from day one of college baseball, you'd be up 16.5 units. But I did have a bad weekend. I lost 10 units last weekend, and that's unacceptable, but we move on. I hate that I lost money for people, but I have to stick with what I know, and college baseball seems to be it. So until I'm proven otherwise, we're going to keep rolling on with these baseball picks.
I tell everyone that wants to listen, a lot of people follow social media and they'll see someone on a heater. They'll see them, holy shit, 15-3, let me join. Well, let me give some words of wisdom and advice. That's not the time to join, guys. It's numbers.
When you start fading them.
That is correct. And now you come out and say, hey, I had a rough weekend. So everyone watching and listening that enjoys college baseball, that enjoys making money, this is the time to jump on off of a rough weekend. So I'm looking at Wager Talk right now. I see Texas TCU canceled. I see North Carolina, Virginia Tech 5-0 in the bottom of the sixth. You talked about BC. Talk about this weekend's card. And, of course, it's Friday Night Lights and what you see going on tonight.
So we've got a couple good matchups. I think Luke Holman going for Alabama. which this is in Arkansas, just so you know, Alabama's italicized. But they take on number 1 LSU, Paul Skeens. I feel like we've talked about him every single week, as we should. He's the best pitcher in the country. And I think we're going to have a pretty good pitcher's duel. If you can find the under, I think Johnny was able to find one on Caesars, but it's 11.5. I like the under. I think Luke Holman, he's not great, but he's not bad either. He's in the top 5 of pitchers in the SEC by ERA. I think they could keep LSU's offense as great as they are. I think they could keep them a little lower scoring. So I did lay with LSU in a parlay, but the bigger play is the under 11.5 in that one. And then I went back to the well with the Arkansas Razorbacks. They announced that our best closer, who's coming off of a little arm strain, he's been out for the better part of 6 weeks. He is actually going to start tonight, Brady Tigert. He has the best Sierra on the team. I think it's a 1.94, not in the negatives like Paul Skeens is, but he is an outstanding pitcher. He's got a filthy curveball. And I just think Texas A&M, they're overmatched right now, even with the injuries that Arkansas is dealing with. You know, they lost Jared Wagner, and then they lost Tavian Josenberger, but Caleb Cowley, Jace Borfin, they've all stepped up. And I think in true Dave Van Horn fashion, this is one of those series where they've got to bounce back. They're at home. They're coming off a midweek loss to Missouri State, and then they got swept last weekend by Georgia, much to my demise. But yeah, those are two of my favorite plays so far. It all kind of depends on the numbers you get and who the starting pitchers are. All these coaches are becoming more and more coy about who they're starting, and it makes it really difficult to handicap. But that's what we try to do at College Baseball Insiders is get you the projected starters, and we've added something else about how long they go. So I feel like that's a lot of value. You may have a great pitcher in there that's got a sub-3 ERA, but if he's only giving you 3.5, 4 innings, you really can't base the whole handicap off a 9-inning game when the best pitcher's going 3.5, 4 innings. So I feel like that's some value. We just – we post all this stuff for free. We're not only trying to give picks, but we're trying to give you information so you can look at everything as a whole and then decide, this guy's a nut job, I'm not following him, or I think it's worth the bet. I like the information he's putting out. So either way, we welcome the clicks. So go visit college. There's a quick plug.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So the Arkansas versus A&M on the money line on that one?
Yeah, I laid the 165 on the news of Tigert starting.
Okay. What if I think you're in that job, but I still follow? There you go. Mr. Smooth, Mr. Sean Alvarez says, what if I think you're in that job, but I still follow you?
I would be worried about your own mental fortitude then.
Hey, he's getting nervous. It's Saturday. Next Saturday's the Derby. His head's on, all eyes are on Sean next week. He'll be taking.
I'm pretty sure I was in Vegas with old Sean last year for the Derby. And I'm pretty sure we got our asses handed to him. So hopefully I can win you some money this weekend so that you have some to blow next weekend on Sean's bad picks. Sorry, Shawnee. I love you, buddy.
I can't wait, Sean. I will be DMing you later. We'll set up a time. We definitely gonna go over the Derby with you as always. Is all the big three, and then try to sneak you on for the Breeders' Cup. But that's always a hard one. He goes Belmont, and we
it was Belmont. Okay, all right.
I'm looking at the card here. Miami, Louisville at 6:00 on Wager Talk at an open line of 135. I'm seeing a little money sprinkled in on Louisville. Is Louisville finally rounding into form, or the U fading, or how am I supposed to look at that game?
That one's tough, and I was on the wrong side last night. Unfortunately, I didn't look at the starting lineup. I just assumed Louisville was going to be throwing Ryan Hawks. He's got a sub-3 Sierra, and he was going to go up against Gage Seal. But Carson Ligon, I think, is going for Miami if he's not still hurt. But really, outside of Louisville's last day guy, Carson Liggett, Louisville is a stay away for me. It proves last night. I don't really know what they're doing. They don't have the bats to contend in the ACC. They've only got one guy that's got over 1,000 OPS, and this Miami team is kind of hitting their stride right now. They went 3-1 last week. They won last night. They held on. They've got Yohani Morales, who's one of the best hitters in the country. Blake Sire and CJ Kafis are turning it on as well. So I don't know. Unless Carson Liggett's going for Louisville, this would probably have to be a Miami play for me.
Scrolling down, rumblings on social media that Tennessee starting to round into form, minus 250 today against State. Am I reading the clippings or the tweets? Is Tennessee rounding into form?
We'll see. They were trying real hard on the broadcast last night to compare them to the Ole Miss team of last year. And I'm not going to write them off yet because they have a pretty good coach. They've got one of the best pitching rotations in the country. And with Blake Burke hitting the cover off the ball, I think they're definitely a team to take seriously. Now, this is Mississippi State. I mean, they're 24-17, now 24-18 after the loss last night. This isn't a great team. And Tennessee is coming off a big sweep versus Virginia or Vanderbilt. And that was impressive, but Mississippi State's really not a contest. I wouldn't say that they're deserving of the minus 240 that I'm seeing on DraftKings right now. But again, I would want no part in Mississippi State. So I would probably parlay them with a LSU or Florida if you just wanted to bet Tennessee. Chase Dolander is going to go today for the Vols, who is probably their best pitcher. So I would parlay Tennessee, but I would not be laying the 240.
Auburn, South Carolina, which would be a pretty good football game. You talked the last couple of weeks about the South Carolina team. Opened up minus 235, also minus 240 against Auburn. Too high?
That's another one with a parlay possibility. I like South Carolina. I parlayed them with LSU and Florida. This team's 24-1 at home. They're 9-1 against the top 50 ERA teams or top 26 through 50. Sorry. And Auburn's sitting there at 47. So I feel like South Carolina should take care of business. They'll probably sweep Auburn. So I would parlay them. I feel pretty confident in that one hitting tonight with Will Sanders on the mound for South Carolina.
You talked about the Vanderbilt team, and the reason I say this is it looks like a short number to how well Vanderbilt had been playing. Opened at 160, still at 160. Has Kentucky cooled down, or is that just it looks short to me, Vanderbilt tonight?
Yeah, this is a tough one because Kentucky doesn't have like any pitcher that's just you've got to back them every night. They're all mid-4 guys. They're average at best, and they lost the series last weekend to Texas A&M. So I think that may be why their train has slowly left the station. They lost 7-0 to Louisville in a midweek. This Kentucky team's too hit or miss for me right now. I wouldn't lay it with Vanderbilt, but I think they're similarly in the position of Florida and Arkansas, where they're coming off a road sweep and they need to bounce back in a big way at home. So I would lean Vanderbilt. I haven't played them in any capacity, but if you're going to do it, I would just throw them in a parlay.
Okay. Texas TCU canceled. Duke, Virginia, minus 180, still at 180. Thoughts on Virginia here?
This was ultimately a stay away. I just told somebody on Twitter, I know Duke has been hot, but Virginia's back home. They didn't have a very impressive showing last weekend, and Brian Edgington looked like crap. Him being back, I feel like he's going to bounce back. But this is also not a team that I would want to lay it with, so I had to stay away. I feel like if if Alex Gal is going for Duke, Duke's probably the better team, but they're on the road. I just think Virginia is going to end up being the right side here.
And I know it's not Oregon State. There is a Pac-12 game up here, Arizona State and Oregon. The Ducks minus 160, 170 at Caesars, 175 at Heritage. I know your thoughts about the Pac-12. Seems a little high to me.
Is there a total?
13. It was opened at 13 and a half. Superbook has it at 12 and a half. Caesars at a 13, juiced under. So it's all over the board.
Yeah, I would lean under in that over anything. But this Arizona State team is really confusing to me because they're I think the 17th ranked team. They're 28-13 on the year. Their RPI is 31, but they don't have any great pitchers. And I think Oregon's got the advantage with Jay Stoffel going tonight, and they're coming off midweek. They beat Gonzaga. They won last weekend at Cal, and they're the 16th ranked RPI. They're 21-9 at home. I feel like you've got to lay it with the Ducks here if you're going to play it. It does worry me in the Pac-12 because it is like a race to 5 runs. So at that point, you're getting into bullpens, and Pac-12 it used to be really good pitching, and the hitters have just not been there. So I don't know. It would take some late game heroics, I feel like, for Arizona State to get the win. But ultimately, with Jay Stoffel, if he can get 5 or 6 solid innings, I think Oregon can hold on and get the home win.
Well, before we wrap up shop here, I need my weekly UConn update.
UConn. Let me see. They're one of my favorite teams to bet just because they tend to always go over, and they play the first slate of games, I feel like, every time. But I haven't seen them on the board this weekend. I'm not sure if they're off or what they've got going on. The same thing with Wake Forest. They're not playing a series this weekend. They're playing Wofford, I think, tomorrow. But back to UConn, they play at Villanova, but I guess there was a rain delay or something because both of those games have been pushed to Saturday. I would have to lay it with the Huskies. They may be in a parlay for me tomorrow. We'll see. But Villanova's not very good. Let me pull up they're 11-28, their record. So,
and what are the Huskies at now?
The Huskies have broken into the top 10. They're 30-11, 6-3 in the Big East. It's a number 10 team, UConn Huskies.
We're going to parlay the men's basketball championship with the baseball.
There you go. I mean, the Huskies, they've been quiet. They're quietly good, but they've been dominating. I mean, they won 9-0 their last game. They average like 12.5 runs a game. So if you can do that, bats typically travel well. Now, what happened last year with getting beat in Stanford, I don't know. But if they get matched up in a favorable regional, this UConn Huskies team could make some noise.
I was going to ask you that, to beat the champ, I go back to basketball, these teams don't just miraculously one year go to the finals. Back in the day, you had to beat the Celtics and then to get to the Bulls or the Pistons. You see this in college hoops where you had a great run. You got knocked out at the Elite Eight. You take that back home with you and you build off of it. Last year in the tournament, UConn men's basketball lost opening first game to New Mexico State. Well, what did he do? He blew up the team. He brought some new recruits, and they took that and then parlayed it into a championship this year. Can the Huskies take that series loss at Stanford and, quietly, like you said, now they're number 10 to 30. It will become to the regional matchup, correct?
Yes. And that may be one of those things that people look up and see UConn number 10 and think, well, shoot, I haven't even seen them play because they usually play at like 1 or 2 in the afternoon, and everybody else is playing at 6 and 7 and prime time. So unless you're just following them closely, I mean, you're really not paying attention to UConn, and that may be one of those spots where you get put in. Like you look at NC State last year, when Arkansas had their run, and then here comes this little ACC team, and which I know UConn's in the Big East, but just for comparison purposes, nobody had really watched a lot of NC State that year, and they turned it on and just they took it to the Razorbacks. So it all depends on who you match up with, and UConn doesn't have great arms, but at the end of the day, all you really need is a favorable matchup and to hit your stride when it counts, and you really can't count anybody out. I mean, outside of the top 16, they're probably going to be the one that wins it all. But anybody within that range they've got as good of a shot as anybody.
We talked the last few weeks about Wake Forest. I added them to the portfolio. We always close this way. Is there a team this weekend or today that we can add to the portfolio?
I don't know. I think Vanderbilt at 18-1, you may be able to get a better price on them if you wait. I don't know if Kentucky wins the series, but I think they'll at least take one. And with Vanderbilt getting swept last weekend against Tennessee, that obviously boosted Tennessee's number. They're back to 15-1. But I think if you're giving me the comparison of Tennessee teams, you got Tennessee at 15 and Vanderbilt at 18. I think Vanderbilt's probably the better value play at this point. Their offense worries me. But that may be one just to kind of pencil in and watch. Outside of that, there's really nothing else. I mean, you're starting to see the separation of the haves and have-nots. I think you saw a little weakness in Campbell. I know everybody's high on them. They're 75-1 right now. They lost in midweek to Duke, and I don't know. I don't put a whole lot of stock in midweek games, but for one that is as important for Campbell with their record and RPI, they needed that win a lot more than Duke did because Campbell doesn't play the schedule to where they can go sweep Florida State or Virginia Tech or somebody that's higher rated. I mean, you got Campbell out there playing like High Point and little colleges like that. So that one hurt for Campbell, and it just kind of proved that outside of one good pitcher, Campbell just really, I don't think, has the talent from top to bottom to make noise. Now, Coastal Carolina, that may be another story. I think, like I said earlier, the bats travel well, and Coastal Carolina can just absolutely crush the ball. So I would put them up against pretty much anybody, maybe outside of LSU's offense, as they could hang with them. And on a list of teams that I would not want to play in a super regional, Coastal Carolina would probably be number one.
I remember a few years back that I think it was 2 years in a row, Coastal knocked UConn out. Sean just said this. This is interesting. UConn is 120-1 right now at Circa and 30-1 at Westgate.
I mean, that 120-1, that's worth some pizza money.
Sean, go get some pizza money, will you? On the Huskies.
Which is crazy because Circa is typically the sharper book. I mean, you look at DraftKings, they've got LSU 4-1. They've got Wake and South Carolina as the next shortest shots at 10-1. Circa's 8-1 on Wake and South Carolina, and they're 5-1 on LSU. So not as high on the Tigers as other places. But again, I mean, it's the curse of number one. Number one seed hadn't won it since, I think, 99. And LSU's, they've got too many holes on this team. Nobody should be laying 4-1 or 5-1 on the Tigers right now. Just don't do it.
We close this way. The scroll has been going the whole time, Matt. At Grissom tweets on Twitter, at CBS Insiders. I like the guests to tell them where to find their work and anything else that you might have to add for your work.
Well, we've changed up our series previews. I post those out on collegebaseballinsiders.com, and I feel like it's really good information just to help you handicap college baseball. Don't wait till the postseason to start familiarizing yourself with these teams. And like I said earlier, if I'm losing, please use my information and help me win. If you want to handicap this stuff, I've laid it all out for you. What I look at, their stats, the advanced analytics, everything you want to look at, I have access to. So come on. But outside of that, you can follow me at Grissom Tweets on Twitter. And then I try to post everything on CBSB Insiders, and then I'll retweet it from my personal account. So just follow us on both. And then all of our bet tracking, everything that you can find that at collegebaseballinsiders.com as well. And other than that, I always look forward to this spot. Jeff, I always appreciate you having me on. Let's turn it around this weekend and cash some tickets.
The one and only Matt Grissom at Grissom Tweets at CBSB Insiders. Guys, go follow him, especially, this time of year. We're starting to get to that time of year. As he said, the teams start to separate. The odds start to separate. So if you miss a show here, guys, you could get a future like Sean Alvarez. You better go run and tell Jeffrey Benson that you're putting a little pizza and beer on the Huskies at 120-1, please. Don't be shy, Sean. You don't need that $10 exacta box at Belmont coming up at 3:15 here. So I will be reaching out to Mr. Alvarez for next week with the Kentucky Derby. He is a star when it comes to the horses and ponies, and we look forward to that. But today and Fridays, as you just said, Matt, love our college baseball talk. So from myself, Jeff Dawson at EC Sports Invest, from the one and only Matt Grissom at Grissom Tweets at CBSB Insiders, we wish everyone a blessed day. Enjoy the baseball. Next, Andrew McGinnis from Wager Talk at McGinnis Picks. We're going to talk some pucks. Are the Bruins going to close out the Panthers tonight? Can the Avs stay alive? Are the Rangers dead? It sure looks like it after their 2-0 start, now 3-2 down. But that's for the frozen pond. We'll see you soon, guys.